we're all slaves to the corporate world. I am not, okay? If you cannot bargain for a better pay, hey you, welcome to the second episode of Real Talk. If this is your first time here, hi, nice to meet you. My name is CJ, and if you're a returning subscriber, it's good to have you back. As someone who has been in a work environment that wasn't serving me, but I was not sure if the right thing to do was quit, I knew I had to take this topic personal. And just so you know, I'm not here to encourage bad behavior or tell you, oh my god, corporate job sucks, you need to quit and start your own business. No, this is not that type of video, okay? But I do think we need to have real conversations about the work environment, especially in Nigeria where Ndidi is a thing. As long as it keeps food on your table, there's no such thing as mental health. You hear things like, oh, a bird in the hand is what's in the bush, or it could be a whole lot worse. No dear, it's already worse. So today, you and I are going to be discussing when to actually quit your job. Come closer. The first and the most obvious sign you'll be looking out for is if your job is toxic. Now, the next question you ask is, CJ, how do I know my job is toxic? Truthfully, if you're asking this, chances are your job is actually not toxic. Because if it is, you already know. But let's say you have a boss or a superior who is always angry, never satisfied with anything you do, you're always overworked, you're stressed, like you dread going to work so much that you now have nightmares. I was listening to a podcast where the podcaster was talking about a time when they were working at this job and they started having nightmares of their job, of their boss pursuing them because of how terrible the work environment was. And it just got me thinking of this time when I was working at this job that was extremely toxic. I wasn't having nightmares, but every morning when I get to work, I have this playlist of Christian music that I listen to just to help me get through the day, because before I even wake up, I'm already tired. Like, I'm so stressed. I dread going to work every day, not because of the workload, but because of the environment, because of the kind of colleagues I had, because of the kind of things that were being said in the office, gossiping. You're just not in a good mental space. Do you understand? And whenever I get there, I would just plug in my earphones, and I would just start listening to this Christian music so that I can get through the entire day. Nobody will be able to get to me, even if they say something that is supposed to piss me off. It was just a whole thing. I even had mantras that I kept on chanting just to keep my head together, So I do know how toxic workspaces can be and how draining it can get. So if you find yourself to be in a work environment that is absolutely toxic and there's nothing that can be done about it, that is, you have complained to your superiors or you have complained to the HR team and nothing can be done about it, then I do think it is time to send in your resignation letter. The next sign is if your work expenses do not match your income or salary. Now, I know why I said work expenses and not your general expenses in a month, because I don't think your Nigerian salary can solve that problem. So by work expenses, I mean your transport fare, your data, your feeding at work, everything that you spend in your work environment, or things that you buy that helps you work better. If the total fee in a month is the same as your salary or even more, I don't think you should continue working there. Don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to quit on a whim, but I do believe that before you make the final decision to quit a job, you should go back and bargain, especially if it is money related. So if you know that, oh my god, I do a lot of work for this company and my salary is not befitting of the job I actually put in this company, go back and bargain. Now, if you're not allowed to bargain, or they tell you, oh no, we cannot do anything about it, in fact, if you cannot bargain, you're a slave. Let's start with that. I know people who say we're all slaves to the corporate world. I am not, okay? If you cannot bargain for a better pay, I'm not telling them to make you a millionaire, but if you cannot bargain for a better pay, leave, okay? Leave. You need to quit this job. So if your salary does not match your work expenses, it is time to actually say goodbye. The next sign is if your career and your finances have been stagnant. You've been at this job and you have not experienced any growth and you don't project any growth. The same salary you were earning in 2013 is what you're earning now with no extra tangible benefit. The only thing growing in your life is dollar rates. Well, my dear, I don't think this job is for you anymore. And let me just add this. You know that sometimes people don't leave their jobs because maybe something was bad or the company is bad. Sometimes we genuinely have outgrown a particular role and we need to move on to better things. So if you've been stagnant and you haven't experienced any growth and you don't think or see yourself getting any growth in this particular company and this particular role, then I think that it is time to move on to something better. The next sign I'm going to say is if your job does not align with your career aspirations. I know in this part of the world, most of us get jobs just to cure starvation, just so that we're not hungry, just so that we can pay basic bills. I know that. But what I'm trying to say is if you know that your job, your current job, does not align with where you are going to in the next 5 years, 10 years, career-wise, then try not to stay there too long. There are companies that don't have structure. So how are you going to climb the corporate ladder when there's no ladder to climb? For example, you want to be the MD of a bank in the next 10 years or 20 years. Find yourself working probably in a restaurant or tailoring shop as maybe a waiter or sales girl. I'm not saying there are terrible positions or terrible roles, but if you have somewhere you are going in the next 10 years, just know that the clock is ticking and you need to start now. You don't have to quit immediately, but don't stay there too long. Remember that the clock is ticking really fast. The last sign I'm going to talk about is your emotions are compromised. Let me explain. Let's say you have an affair with a senior colleague or maybe your boss, and then you guys have an issue, or they start making advances to another colleague and you now start to have beef with that colleague, or you guys start to have issues. Personally, I don't subscribe to work relationships. I'm sorry. There's a reason why some offices have this law in place, because it can actually get really messy, you know? So if your productivity is now affected by your emotions, for example, you're supposed to work with Jennifer on a particular project, but because Jennifer is talking with Matthew, you refuse to do your job with Jennifer, then your emotions are compromised, and I don't think you're fit to keep working in that company. The moment you realize you're no longer efficient at work because of your relationship with somebody, you might have to start looking at other options. If you cannot check that behavior, if you cannot check that emotion, if you can't keep yourself in check, then it might be time to actually say goodbye. Bonus tip, I don't think you need to have it all figured out before you make that big decision. I don't think you need a safety net, contrary to popular belief that maybe you need another job before you quit your current job, or you need a particular amount saved up before that can last you for 3 to 6 months before you get something else. I don't think that. I think when you actually over plan and plan things, you end up delaying, or you end up not making that decision when you should have made that decision. Do you understand? For example, I remember there was a time I wanted to quit my job, but because I needed certain things to be in place, I ended up staying there for another 6 to 7 months, which was highly unnecessary. It took my friends to actually tell me, do it and things will fall into place. And guess what? When I made that decision, things actually started to fall into place. So sometimes you don't actually need all the answers. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you need to have this, do this, have this in place. And I'm not saying those things are not valid. I think they are. If you are opportune or lucky enough to put those things in place, good for you. But if not, I will still encourage you to take that step, because sometimes that step is the key that is going to open another door. Okay, and that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, also share this video on your socials. My handle is on the screen, #Real Talk, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more episodes like this. Until I see you in my next video, bye.